Hi everyone, my name's Darryl Panes, CEO at As Good as Gold Australia. And once again, I'm joined by my brother Brian and partner at As Good as Gold. And today we welcome back a very special guest, one of the smartest people in the precious metal space. I speak of the incomparable Lynette Zang, Chief Market Analyst at ITM Trading, way over there in Phoenix, Arizona. Good morning, Lynette.
Thank you for that fabulous introduction. I'll do my best to live up to it.
Well, it's good morning over here, and I think it's good afternoon over there.
Yeah. And
It is good afternoon over here.
at other ends of the day, for sure. And we keep forgetting that whenever we do an intro. But wow, I guess I could be excused for forgetting that. I mean, and what an incredible couple of days.
Yeah.
Hundreds of millions of people, Lynette, all around the world watching the US election unfold, of course. Will it be Trump? Will it be Biden? Rick Rule, and we interviewed Rick just recently, doesn't think that it will make any difference. The damage has already been done. The economy is in disaster zone. Bill Holter, Jim Sinclair have said Donald Trump has to win for the world to have any chance at all, but and he might just make that much difference. So, Lynette, I guess the important question here is, most importantly, what does Lynette Zang think? Where does the economy go from here, Lynette?
First of all, I really do think that the politicians are just a form of distraction. And so I would vote with Rick on that it really doesn't matter who ends up winning this election, because we've really, the economy was falling apart way before coronavirus. The system died in 2008, and it's just been on life support. And that life support started breaking down a year ago last September, when the money markets, the repo markets were imploding. So yeah, I'm with Rick. It doesn't matter who gets elected. It's too late. We're walking through slowly, I guess. I don't think it's so slow, but we're already in the middle of a whole social, economic, and financial reset.
Yeah, look, I mean, we go back. I mean, you've just got to go back basically to 1971, don't you? I mean, when America went off the gold standard, and all we've done ever since then is play around, manipulate interest rates, keep printing currency. As I read it at the moment, I mean, and that's what America has been doing, Australia's been doing since then. But I think if Biden wins, it's just going to open up. It's just going to be a massive spending spree, which, of course, is a perfect environment for precious metals. Of course, question that I would like to raise, and because we obviously live in Australia, you live in the United States of America, mainstream media over here continue to try and give the impression that everything is fine. Everything is fine. I listened the other day to a report from a gentleman on mainstream media on a Good Morning show, but it was a finance section within that program. And he said, just have a look at it at the moment. He said, interest rates in Australia, they've gone from 0.25 of 1%, down to 0.1 of 1%. And he said, guess what? The RBA has told us that there's going to be no change here. There's not going to be any increase in interest rates for at least another 3 years. So isn't that great news? Isn't that great news? And I thought, great news, it's horrible news. I mean, horrible news. I mean, what is it indicating? What is it telling us of the state of our economy, that it can't tolerate 0.25 of 1%?
Yeah.
So it's got to drop to 0.1 of 1% to generate any interest in new home buyers. New home buyers are going out, and of course, this is my one and only chance to buy a property. This may never happen again because they're paying interest rates of under 2%. And they're getting a $40,000 upfront incentive from our government to buy that property. So is this same message being used in the United States to continue to prop up these markets?
Absolutely. They have to
Fine.
prop up the markets. They cannot raise interest rates, because what would happen to all of that rolling over debt? But beyond that, and it's interesting because I hear dead silence on this topic. I mean, seriously, dead silence. Are you guys aware that it was the weekend of October 15th? So it's like I think the 17th or 18th. A big test was run we're talking about interest rates, so we need to talk about the LIBOR and the IBORs, which are going away the end of 2021. And in mid-October, a couple weeks ago, they were transferring or having an auction to convert 80 trillion in interest rate derivatives from the IBORs to, in this country, the SOFR, SOFR. And the interesting thing about that is there is not one word of the auction results anywhere that I can find. I was looking at it earlier today. I'm on the ISD website. I'm on the market website. These are the two sites that I should, at least if I don't find anything anywhere else, I should be able to find the results of that auction. How did it do? And I can find nothing. That scares the Hades out of me, I got to tell you.
Yeah.
You've got, let's see if I can remember this correctly. I don't have the data in front of me, but you're talking about $640 trillion worth of derivative contracts. And that's just notional. That doesn't reflect value at risk. That's just the amount of the contracts. And out of that 640 trillion, 73.5% of them are interest rate related. So when we're sitting here talking about interest rates, when you have the world anchored at zero for 12 years now, so it isn't just the debt, it's also what in the world is happening globally with these interest rate derivatives and the change over to the benchmark. That is a much, much bigger concern to me than, frankly, anything.
It is a very interesting scenario with all these derivatives. I remember my parents. They started to build their home in the 1950s, and they did it one step at a time. It was never in those days, you buy a house and all the bells and whistles with it. My father made the bricks for the home. Then there was the curtains, and then there was the roof, and then the walls and whatever. But between, after the Second World War and obviously before 1971, we had Bretton Woods, which backed gold. The US dollar was backed by 40% gold. And things were incredibly stable. I remember going to school. I remember that my younger years in those years, and very, very stable. Australia had a brilliant economy. We didn't have all these derivatives. We didn't have all these ways in which you buy and sell in the derivative format. I know interest rates were between 3 and 6% for 20 years. It just didn't change, right? And so all of a sudden, they want to go off the gold standard, right? And I don't mind saying that I'm a true believer in a gold standard run properly. But the bottom line is we go offer it, and we got all these derivatives. We got all these things they must do. We got to shake this one and blend this one and sell that and buy this. It just seems like it's very, very powerful people corrupting the whole system. But I must go into my first question after all that rave. So I will start.
Oh, no, I think Lynette wanted to say something there. Would that be correct?
I would say that it really is all about manipulation. And it's all about inflation. And that's the big experiment, was regulating the speed and the rate of the inflation. So when you have interest rates, you're talking, great that they're positive, because I can't guarantee this. Obviously, it's beyond my control. But there is no choice. I don't care what any central bankers say, oh, we don't want to do negative interest rates. The IMF had that policy paper in 2017. In 2015, they showed how they could basically get rid of cash, bam, like that. And oh my goodness, hasn't that been happening? Right. And in that paper, what they said was that they wanted the retailers to introduce going cashless to the public. So, because they like distance between their policy and the introduction of their policy. So nobody goes back to the central bank and say, well, you wanted us to go cashless. So I'm sorry, I kind of took you in a different direction, but if we're talking about interest rates and we're talking about, central banks and the policies, I mean, and it's I had an interesting thing happen to me yesterday. Mm-hmm. There is this restaurant that's near the office, and I was going to have a meeting there one day. It wasn't my meeting. Somebody else called it for there. And on the sign, there was a big sign on the front door that we do not accept cash. And that's a big bugaboo for me because we were talking about choices before, right?
Yeah.
And so I saw that and I went, well, I can't go there. And everybody else was in there. Oh, yeah, well, okay, well, the next meeting. But I already knew that if I went in there, I was not going to buy anything. And I wasn't going to let anybody else buy anything for me either, because that's my integrity. So we ended up going someplace else because I appreciated very much that they knew that I would not be able to focus on the meeting and I would not be comfortable there. But it came up from the same restaurant because it's good. The food is good and it's healthy and all of that. And the person that was talking to me said, well, but you don't know why they put that sign up in the window. And I thought to myself, and I actually said it, I don't think I did a good job with the message to this person, but I actually said, no, I actually do know why they put that sign up in the window. They might not know why they put that sign up in the window.
Yes.
Right?
Yeah.
So, yeah, it's, we talk about interest rates and I'm sorry, you could go to your next question.
The cash thing is really interesting because, I mean, how many times I've walked into a shop, whether it be to a supermarket, could be a supermarket or it could be a fish shop, whatever, but walk in and there's people everywhere just waiting in queues because they can't make a payment because the system's broken down, they can't use their credit cards. Right. I walk in and I say, but you'll accept cash. Fortunately over here, Lynette, many stores do. Yes, of course. And so you've got all these people surrounding you and you just walk in, pay for cash, walk out with your goods. I mean, but to restrict you to the extent, and this is what's going to happen, of course, where cash is only available in limited amounts and at some point of time, maybe not at all, and then you're totally reliant upon a card. And just recently, of course, NAB had 24 hours here in Australia, where the whole system shut down, people just couldn't buy anything with a credit card. Nothing for 24 hours. So imagine what happens then if that happens for a week, a month.
Well, Lynette, you would relate to this.
By choice.
That's not by choice, exactly. Correct. I mean, you would relate to...
Decides that they don't like your politics, boom.
Exactly. People just, unfortunately, in particular young people, just don't get this.
No, they certainly don't. And I was about to say that, Lynette Zang, you would relate to, I mean, you've had some forest fires in California, maybe other states, but we did last year massive fires in New South Wales and Victoria. And there was one stage there that people would, they didn't have petrol in their tank, so they wanted to clear out, but they couldn't go to the service station because the fires had destroyed the line, so they couldn't use their credit card. And only the people that had cash could actually fill up their motor car. So, there's, choices. That's what we are always asking, just have a choice. I will now get back to my question. I was watching a question time that you put together only in the last week, I believe, And you stated that as the reset starts moving ahead, generally speaking, real estate should become cheaper. Cities or countryside or both? Are we at the top of the market? And what did you mean by using gold to offset the mortgage?
Oh, those are great questions. Well, it kind of depends on where we are right now, but I would say that even in the cities with what's happening with commercial real estate, it's way more expensive than it should be. So there's not one doubt in my mind, but we are somewhere at the top of the market with real estate. So as an investment, I think it's a really bad investment. But what I mean by offsetting it, you have real estate that's overvalued, you have gold that's severely undervalued, okay? And so buying it, buying both of these, like, okay, I'm in the process of working on getting what I call a bug out house, which is a house where I can go because I'm right in the middle of the city. And when riots or when it gets nasty out there, I want a place where I can go with my family and feel safe and secure. So I could sell some gold and buy that house for cash, or I could take a mortgage out. And as we were talking about, we know how low mortgage rates are, keep my gold. And then when the reset occurs and gold goes up to it's somewhere near its true value, sell a little teeny bit of it and pay that mortgage off with dollars that have no value. So therefore, no matter what it was that I paid for it, since I'm not paying virtually any interest on it, I'm buying that house really, really cheap.
That makes sense.
Does that make sense?
Yeah, that makes definitely sense.
Absolutely.
The next question is totally different, and I've written down here. I used to watch Ron Paul, and I still do watch Ron Paul sessions quite a bit. Obviously, you get so busy you can't watch everybody, but he's certainly one of my favourites. But my question is, in the United States, are there any more Ron Pauls? And if not, why not? Surely we have men and women with the utmost integrity that wish to run for office. People who are successful and don't need a government income to give out their leadership.
I think there are Ron Pauls around, though I don't know any at the moment. I mean, his son is in politics, but I think that right now there is so much garbage in the political system. And we saw what happened in 2008, and you had Neil, I have his book, Bailout, where he was actually overseeing it. And because he wanted to be honest, they basically blackballed him and kicked him out. So I have hope. I mean, that's basically what happened. Here's an honest person, but you have all of these dishonest people that are going to shove them out. But my hope, honestly, is that the wildfire that's taking place right now in the economy, I think we're going to have a revolution, and that could get rid of that garbage and make way for some honest people to go into politics that actually care about the people. I just think that right now they're overwhelmed by all the garbage.
Yeah. Obviously, we need that type of people. I mean, I remember, and I've read my history on Australian politics, that in the early 1900s, a politician, the majority of politicians were part-time. And they did it for a public service, so they didn't expect an income out of it. So I think we're a long way from there, but I do believe you get a better person if they're doing it off their own back and not expecting a payback.
I agree, but look at how even people, what do? They'll give up a little bit of income over here because they had lots over here, and then when they get out of politics, that's when they really make a lot of money. In terms of fiat, whether it's sitting on all of these boards and having all of these connections, speaking, what have you. I mean, that's when they really make, not while they're in office, but when they're out of office, that's when they really make the money.
I will bring up a point here, Lynette, that maybe not in the United States. I'm not quite sure what the President of the United States gets paid, but I do know that our Prime Minister gets paid more. So when they're in office over here and they're in the cabinet, they're very highly paid. They also make money when they leave as well. But our politicians, which I don't agree upon, I believe if you're going to serve the country, you do it without expecting an income or a very, very low income. It's not the way it works over here.
It's probably not the way it works anywhere. But you know what I think is really interesting? Gerald Celente brought this point up, and I think it's brilliant. With all of this new technology, and particularly blockchain technology, and then everybody crying foul on voting and all of that, I think we could do with a whole lot less politicians, because the technology is such that my vote would actually count to what I believed in, and not have the politician make a vote for me that I don't agree with.
Yeah, very,
but
very
yet
true.
I don't hear anybody other than Gerald talking about that.
I will be interviewing Gerald very shortly. Yeah, we'll bring that one up again.
We will. We're interviewing Gerald in a few days' time.
Oh yeah, definitely bring
yeah.
it.
Yeah.
Bring that up. Absolutely, it was brilliant.
Yeah. I'm sure we're going to get a lot of passion from Gerald, especially you can count on that.
Count on that one.
Look, Lynette, I'm going to bring up a point here, and because I just don't think people get it. I really don't. And the emphasis here is on gold and silver. Surprise, surprise. But here are the facts. The last 20 years, like since 2000, gold is up in US dollars 473%. Aussie, 700%. In Aussie, you could purchase 2000, you could purchase gold at $390 spot, and now it's $2,650. Now, this has been during a relatively stable period, much more so than what the period that we are entering into right now. And this is emphasised by the fact that the last 18 months, gold is up 50%. In Aussie, US wouldn't be a lot different. 50%. That's $1,800. This is 18 months ago, gold was $1,800. Now it's $2,650. Last 18 months, silver's up 70%. Aussie, $20, now $35 today. It's just over 70%. Now this is without question, the best investment that one could have made over that period of time. The performance of the S&P 500, the bond market are just insignificant in comparison. Gold leads the way over that period of time. Now we are about to enter, or we are entering right now, a phase in the economy where everything is uncertain. There is nothing stable about this economy at all. So one could expect conservatively for gold to outperform the last 20 years, which is a massive return on investment. Why would you consider anything else? Now, my point here is, Lynette, why don't they get it? Why do people just not get it?
That is really a great question. And I'd say there's two reasons for that. Number one is the normalcy bias. If you think about anybody that was born 1933 or later, they were never on the gold standard. So I was born in 54. I was on a quasi gold standard, but it was really, you could think of it as the dollar standard. So if I didn't have my Uncle Al, honestly, I don't know how much about this I would know. to be perfectly honest with you. So we have been taught, here's a quote, and I didn't come up with this, I wish I had, but it's perfect. When a well-packaged web of lies has been sold gradually to the masses over time, the truth will seem outrageous and the speaker a raving lunatic. So, right? So that is the normalcy bias. But additionally to that, and it's interesting because you were referring to the moves in both gold and silver in terms of that fiat government money, right? In reality, it's been much bigger. So, but what they knew when they created this system, I mean, it is genius, is that people do not understand inflation. So what an Aussie dollar or US dollar or a Swiss franc or any fiat money, what that would buy in 1971 and how much of that you needed to support a family of four on one income. Recently in the US, they were giving anybody with less than, that was $9,500 in 1971. Recently, they gave anybody that made less than $75,000 a $1,200 stimulus check. And if you were both working and making less than $75,000, so $150,000, you got $2,400. Now, what does that tell you? That tells you that 150 grand is not as good as 9,500 in 1971.
Sure.
My question is, why don't people realize that? What one person could do to support a family then, now, I mean, you're hand to mouth, you're paycheck to paycheck. That would have been I was a teenager and my parents weren't home and a man came up to the door. My father was a developer and he handed me 12 $1,000 bills. I'd never seen that much money in my life. I had just gotten out of the shower. I wasn't even dressed. I was afraid to put it down to go get dressed. So I sat on the sofa holding this $12,000, waiting for my father to get home. And as soon as he did, I handed it to him. Would you know, we don't even have $1,000 bills anymore.
No.
Right? So, you know, that's really why people do not understand inflation. That's how they've been able to get away with it for so long. It's that nominal confusion. And yet we all know that the $20 bill in your pocket today does not buy what it bought a year ago, let alone 5 years ago, 10 years ago, 100 years ago.
Yeah.
But that's why. And they use that with the stock market, right? So they see people see the stock market going up. I mean, that's why they have to manipulate it up. And it makes the perception is that this is making money when the reality is it's supported by lots of new money being printed. And that means that the money that you're working for, that we're all working for, is losing value as we're earning it.
I believe Charles Ponzi had the same idea.
I believe he did. And it works until it doesn't.
Yeah, that's exactly right.
I know, like inflation is stealing money from the masses. Of that there is no doubt. And I very often illustrate it this way and say, let's say that you had a stack of $100 bills and you put them away somewhere. Let's say that you put them into a safe. But unbeknownst to you, somebody has the key to that safe other than yourself and comes in the middle of the night and takes one of those $100 bills off the top of the stack. You look in the safe the next morning, you don't see anything missing. But they do it again the next night, the next night, the next night, and the next night. It takes some time before you walk in one morning and you look at that stack and say, it just doesn't seem to look as high as it did when I first put the cash in there. It's a very slow, insidious process that is inflation. But that's how it works, isn't it? Just stealing from you a bit at a time. Yeah. I think, Lynette, and I know this has been said before, but I believe now more than ever that this is probably going to be the last time that you will ever be able to purchase precious metals at the price you can right now. For me, it really doesn't. For me, it doesn't matter. Brian and I, and probably yourself, Lynette, we've been socking it away for 30 years. It doesn't matter. But for those entering the market, I think right now, this is the time. They need to do something right now. I look at it, and gold, of course, was up 1.5% in US, 1.6% overnight, up $50. Silver up about 6%, $1.50 US overnight. I think we're going to see a lot more of this. I think it's starting now, and it's going to go on for a very long period of time. What say you?
I agree with you. And in fact, shortly before we came on, I was looking at the graph on spot gold, which is a contract. And with that move, it had been forming a wedge pattern, and it broke out of that wedge. And it kind of works like this. If you have a spring and you have your hand on the spring, when you remove your hand, it shoots in a direction. And since it was a breakout above, it shot up. But I'm also going to remind you that a rising gold price, or not you, because you guys know this, but for listeners, a rising gold price is really an indication of a failing fiat currency. So even at these price levels, these are really gold and silver are both severely undervalued. And the real trend that I think everybody needs to be paying attention to is that purchasing power of the fiat currency, because that's underlying all of these trends, right? But with physical gold and silver, it goes back to actually all assets go back to their fundamental value. What is the most important function that asset or instrument performs? And for gold, its job, which is done for 6,000 years, is to hold its value over time. So anything can be manipulated, but over time. And, I'll also bring you back to something else that the whole world experienced back in March and April, was that bifurcation between the spot price and the premiums you had to pay on the physical gold and silver, which was much more indicative of real demand and supply. And even though those premiums have come down a bit, they're still there, because what people really need to understand, no matter where you're putting your wealth, if you want it to last, or it's really an investment, you need to have something that has the broadest base of buyer. And both physical gold and silver, not the contract, but the physical metals, are used across the entire swatch of the global economy. So the financial markets, as well as electronics, as well as manufacturing and jewelry and food, and everywhere. So you always have a buyer. Whereas these fiat money, these government money-based products, annuities and stocks and bonds, one place. That's it, one place. So when confidence, going back to what you were saying before, but when confidence in that currency and in the system is lost, there's no demand there. But with physical gold and silver, there's always demand. There has been for 6,000 years. It's tried time and time and time again. It's lived through what we're living through right now.
Yeah. I know that confidence is everything. I don't think there'd be any greater illustration of that. President de Gaulle 1965, stood up, I do not trust the American dollar, sent a warship to the United States and exchanged the currency. And then it was $35 an ounce for gold. So he exchanged the amount of dollars he required for, and wanted the gold in replacement. And of course, America did provide the gold. However, there were numerous requests from that point onwards for the same from other countries. And of course, the US knew that they had overprinted and they didn't have enough gold in the vault.
Yeah,
so
America lost, they had 20,000 plus tons and went down to 9,000 tons before Nixon said, that's enough.
That's enough. Just a loss of confidence in the provider of the currency. That's all it needs. Brian.
Yes, move forward. Before I do, again, I have a couple of questions, which would be part one, part two. But you made a statement, and that was gold holding value over a period of time. And I had a discussion with Gerald Salente, this is 12 months ago, and I related, and to your audience, you would relate to this, is that Model T Ford came out in approximately 1903, $385, but in gold, 18 ounces, because gold back then was $20 an ounce. So it was around 18 ounces. And we move forward, right, for 110 years, so over a long period of time, move forward 110 years, and you'll find out now in Australia and in America that I think the American typical Ford saloon car would be $30,000. Over here it's $40,000. But incredibly enough, you can buy that car for less than 18 ounces of gold. In actual fact, it's 15 ounces of gold to buy the same motor car. So it's gone from 18 to 15, but look what you get. Look at all the automation and all the productivity results and everything else. All that has, and 110 years later, you can buy it for less money using gold, not using currency or fiat currency. Question. Do you have a position or how much of your silver and gold savings that does not get touched? Maybe your thoughts regarding a specific percentage of your precious metals wealth. You just do not use it?
I don't want to use any of it, frankly, at this juncture. However, having said that, and knock wood, I haven't had to, but I have my gold. Silver for me is barterable, and gold, I have emergency gold, and then I have growth gold, and then I also have legacy gold. So I have different kinds of gold. The legacy gold is for me to just pass down from generation to generation to generation so that they always have that foundation of wealth. And my growth gold is to convert into income producing assets as we move through this trend. So if I needed to, then I would utilize my emergency gold if I needed to convert it into fiat for some reason. But here's hoping that I don't have to until I'm ready to execute the next part of my strategy, which is the growth part, when those currently severely overvalued income producing assets drop down.
Right. So in other words, gold is money, and you use it when you see a productive asset that you believe could do well. Yeah. Second part, if when you get a new client coming to you with no holdings of gold and silver at that moment, is there a common percentage figure of their assets that you constantly come up with? So in other words, how much gold and silver should they own amongst all their assets?
That's a great question. And actually, there is, I started studying currencies in 1987, and that's when I started seeing repeatable patterns. And so I developed a strategy for myself and everybody, all the consultants at ITM use it. So the first thing that we do when a new client comes in is there's a series of questions, because we want to determine what their goals are and where they currently are. So for example, let's say somebody has in this country a 403B that they cannot touch, which means it's all in the stock market. Then there are formulas that are built into the strategy to determine, okay, well, how much gold do they need to protect that wealth that they have to keep in fiat or that they choose to keep in fiat, right? So there is definitely a strategy. And we also take a look at what is your current cost of living? Because part of this, the strategy really encompasses like 4 parts. One is sustainability. So what do you need to do to sustain your current standard of living? And then that is primarily, for me, it's primarily silver and then some gold for property taxes and things like that. So we really want to know what your circumstance is, and then we just have this beautiful spreadsheet with all of these great formulas built in. Additionally, let's say somebody wants to take a withdrawal from their IRA and now they have a taxable event because of it. And, understand that's why they created the IRAs like that, because people will look at them and go, oh, I have $100,000. I don't want to pay the taxes. Well, you're going to pay the taxes. Sooner or later, you're paying the taxes. This is probably your cheapest time to pay the taxes. But at any rate, part of the strategy is to recoup any taxes, any fees, anything. So it's really a comprehensive strategy that looks at all of those pieces and parts. But I would not say that there is a blanket, and it includes some of your holdings in cash. Because, for example, if you're retired and you're generating income off of your holdings, or you're getting a pension, or you're getting something like that, well, we need to make sure that when we go into hyperinflation, that's covered. But I'm not in that circumstance because I'm still working, right? So it really, the strategy that we execute here is really customized. It's basically the same one I created for myself, just tweaked for every individual.
Yeah. I was listening to a Canadian billionaire, and he went back to, I think it was 1995, something about 25 years. And he said, year on, year out, he said a good combination is 20% gold, silver, and as much as 7 to 10% in gold mining stocks and things like this. Would you agree? That's a reasonably good figure to work with?
Well, in 95, that was probably a pretty good figure to work with. But if you can, here's the thing for me. If I can only convert that into government money, then at this juncture, because of where we are in the trend cycle, I don't own any of that kind of stuff. I just own physical gold and physical silver. And of course, I have shelter, food, water, energy, security, community. So, those are the things that become important as we're going through a full reset, which we weren't in 95. I mean, we were actually, that is actually when we hit 97 is when we hit peak debt. In other words, when taking on more debt was no longer economically stimulative. And you can see that in the monetary velocity.
Yeah.
And they also did a lot of other changes to kind of goose the system then. Like in this country, I don't know when Australia might have adopted the sweep laws that enabled, you make a deposit and then the banks get to sweep that money into sub accounts and then use it for their benefit. So lots of things happened in the mid 90s. It was really actually a pretty interesting period to goose this whole thing and keep it going. And we were talking about derivatives. Derivatives have been around forever, but it's the speculative derivatives that really started taking off in the end of the 90s, caused the first derivative implosion in 99, long-term capital management, 98, 99. And then that led up to 2008's derivative implosion. And I think we're headed to another one.
Lynette, wonderful advice. I have one last question to ask you. In fact, I really have 1,000 questions I would like to ask you, but time doesn't permit. Our viewing audience would need 15 cups of coffee, I think, to get through the interview. However, Brian and I have spoken many times to our viewing audience and to our personal clients, of course, about a gentleman by the name of Peter Daniels Sr., who has been our lifetime mentor, provided us with wonderful advice over many years, and was really responsible for us starting to invest in precious metals and then eventually get involved in the industry. So he had a huge impact on our life, didn't he?
Absolutely.
And I make reference, yes, of course, to another gentleman who would always say, Charlie Tremendous Jones would always say, the two most important things in life are the people you meet and the books you read. And we've been fortunate enough to read a lot of books and gain wonderful information from them and communicate with a lot of really qualified people who have helped us advance through life. So what I'd like to do, and this is just a wonderful opportunity, I think, to ask yourself, Lynette, as much as you could provide countless amounts of advice to our viewing audience, if you were restricted to just two pieces of advice, can I ask you what they would be? To provide that advice to maybe, let's call it budding entrepreneurs wanting to make a mark in their life. And also, I guess for people, it's for everybody really. Those who are getting towards those wonderful retirement years, just what is it that two pieces of advice you could provide?
Well, you just asked me like two extremes. I would say, number one, that there's enormous opportunity that is in the process of presenting. So for both camps, whether you're a young entrepreneur getting started or somebody that's older, I would say, well, number one, in both cases, buy gold and silver. It is the cheapest asset out. They are the cheapest assets out there. And then don't be afraid to take advantage of the opportunities that will absolutely present during and after this crisis.
Can't get any better advice on that.
No, and I'd be 100% supportive. Okay. Once again, because this is the second time we've been fortunate enough to be able to interview Lynette, we thank you profusely.
I feel the same way.
Fantastic support, wonderful information. What I'd like to do, however, is ask you about ITM Trading. Okay, obviously, lots of viewers right now would be wanting to know more about your company. How do they make contact? What do ITM Trading offer? Certainly for those who are interested in getting and knowing more about precious metals, gold and silver. What's the process? How do they make contact with you at ITM?
Well, we have a great website, so itmtrading.com. For those, we also have a free number, 888-696-4653, because we absolutely love human contact. I have a YouTube channel where there's always new information. I do deep dives every week, lots of Q&As, because we are very keen on educated opinions and educated choices. And we really are all about choices. So you can just go on to YouTube and put in ITM Trading, or you can Google my name or search my name, Lynette Zang, and I'm sure that can come up.
Look, yeah, I must admit I've watched the channel many times, and it's I get absorbed in it, the information. And we prided ourselves as being a company that provides information.
Education and
Yeah,
information.
not just take orders. It's just never ever been the way we operate, is it? And I see ITM as exactly the same.
Yeah, I think that's really, education is so important, because here's my favorite question. How many times can you be lied to when you do not know the truth?
Yep. Yeah. Very, very strong point. That leads to another absolute conversation, doesn't it?
Well, next time we meet Lynette, we'll bring up that one up as well.
Parting words of Egon von Greyer's when asked the question.
I love Egon.
Yeah, Egon's fantastic, and look, we've become really close friends. And Egon would say, upon being asked the question, how much should I invest in precious metals? And he would say, whatever you can't afford to lose. And I think today that has become even more so.
Very simple answer, but very truthful.
Yeah.
Going into the digital age, I mean, that's another conversation. But honestly, I mean, I knew how important, I've known for many, many years how important gold and silver are. But I've got to say that I think today, with everything that's going on, it's even more important to have that. It's the only thing you can have without any counterparty risk that's out of the system, that has a full spectrum of demand.
Yeah. Jim Sinclair, become your own central bank. Doesn't get any better than that, does it?
No.
And we know why they hold gold.
Yeah.
Lynette, thank you so much. Thank you again. We would... for everything that you do to assist us with our channel. And thank you to our subscribers, our viewers who continue to support this channel. Thank you so much. And what I would like to say now is stay well, stay focused, and until next time, bye for now.
Bye for now.
Bye-bye.